So today I want to talk about why anything worth doing is worth doing poorly. Hey, what's up everybody? It's Stein, and today I'm talking about why anything worth doing is worth doing poorly. Yes, you heard me right. Typically people say anything worth doing is worth doing well. And I want to speak to the contrary, that especially in the context of music, that, or anything creative really, that isn't necessarily helpful or what I find to be true. And as you can see, I'm not using my normal microphone. I got my headphone piece here clipped to my shirt. I'm sitting in front of this nasty painting that came with this apartment on my couch. You know, it's not necessarily the best quality, and it proves my point. I forgot that I had my headband on. The whole point of this, of me just doing it, is in the video, is a demonstration that a video can be helpful. It can have good content. It can speak truth. It can give ideas to people, but it doesn't necessarily have to be perfect. Now, let me go through some of the reasons why I think anything we're doing is worth doing poorly, and let's start with the reasons why this is true. So, as artists, I want to talk about 5 things: overthinking, self-doubt, procrastination, self-criticism, and indecision. So, overthinking. So many of us have ideas, and when we stop or in fact, when we never start and we're overthinking what needs to happen, what things need to be in place, what pieces need to be aligned in order for this to work, it often creates scenarios where we don't do anything, we don't start, we don't finish. This creates self-doubt. If we are constantly questioning what we're doing and how we're doing it and focusing on the details, it's going to create in us a self-doubt. It's going to allow us to not be creative, to not feel free. Self-doubt comes in a lot of different forms. It could be the fear that other people will judge you. It may be your own fear that you're not as good as you thought you were. Either way, if you are primarily concerned with doing things well and perfectly, as the adage says, you have to do anything worth doing, you got to do it well. If it's really, really worth it, you better be great at it. Well, you're not going to be great at it when you first start, and you're always going to be a student. I'm always going to be a student. Self-doubt says that I'm not good enough. Self-doubt creates people focusing on becoming perfect before they actually execute what they want to do and actually perhaps be happy in the process of doing it. Procrastination. Procrastination is related to self-doubt, but procrastination is more focused specifically with time. Oh, I have time, I'll do that later, or I'm doing something else now. It is a form of self-doubt, but it's also kind of an excuse of not doing for whatever reason. And a lot of times it's not necessarily that people don't have time or they think that they have more time than they do. Procrastination is sometimes rooted in fear. The fear that one is not ready. I know several musicians who focus so much on their gear starting out that they don't ever start. They think that they have to have all these different pieces of technology in order to make music, and it's not true. As you make music, that is when you start to realize the things that you truly need and don't need. 4, self-criticism. This is also related to self-doubt. We live in a world where perfection is emphasized. And whether that's body image, whether that's quality, whether that's money, whether that's content, music, whatever, people are so critical because things are out in the open. But oftentimes people are critical because they feel insecure. Self-criticism is a huge thing. And self-criticism often comes from criticism from other people. You get criticized by other people enough, you start to criticize yourself and believe those things. Anything worth doing is worth doing poorly is really suggesting that you need to stop self-criticizing yourself and do that which needs to be done, even if you're not good at it. That in the process of doing it, you will grow, you will find your purpose, your meaning, your road, your avenue within that activity. And lastly, indecision. Indecision is also, related to overthinking. All of these things are related. Indecision is the lack of ability to choose which way forward. And that may be out of fear, that may be out of insecurity, that what if I choose the wrong thing? What if I waste time? What if I have a setback? Indecision is often based on the desire to do what's right or to do what's correct or most helpful or most beneficial. Now, as of right now, I've been using this statement, anything worth doing is worth doing poorly and accurately. Really what that means is that we oftentimes put in the hands activities that we should be doing for ourselves. For example, raising our kids. Everyone who has a kid should raise their kid, or at least in an ideal world, that's what it should be like. Everybody who has a child has the opportunity to be a parent. And yet, so many people feel inadequate because they're not a professional. But let's think about it. If your child was raised by a professional, they wouldn't be raised by you. And therefore, your child wouldn't be raised by the person who they come from, the family that they're from, the genetics that they come from. And some may see this as a good thing, but imagine if there was some state program that raised kids, right? What kind of people would they be? Everything that's worth doing, i.e. raising kids, in this example, is worth doing poorly. Even if you're not an expert, you're probably going to be a better parent than some program that's raising kids. So the idea is that everybody who is not an expert still has to do things like brush their teeth or cook. Not everybody's a great cook, but anything worth doing, eating, is worth doing poorly. It's worth cooking badly for you to eat instead of not eating and waiting to be a professional. But how I'm spinning it and kind of putting it into this creative scenario for music makers and content creators and writers and whatnot. So, what does anything worth doing is worth doing poorly? Let's come up with some reasons for why. So, the main one is clarity and expertise in doing things well comes from doing them poorly from the start. Just starting. No one becomes a master straight away. Yes, there's people that are gifted at things, but even if you look at people who are at the top level of their profession or their skill, whether that's a Michael Jordan or a Leonardo da Vinci or some people who are seen as the best at what they do, whether they're a singer or an artist or a communicator or a doctor, they start out as an apprentice. They start out as a fool. They start out as someone who doesn't know what they're doing, and their skills are honed. There's no example of someone who's perfect from the start. Second, creativity comes when you do. If you wait and read all the books about music theory, you'll be paralyzed by indecision because you're trying to make decisions based off technicality instead of just what feels good, what sounds good. Same thing with mixing music. You could say, okay, there's a science to it. Yeah, there's certain frequencies that need to come up and come down, and certain things need to be cut and roll off and all that stuff. But if that defeats the purpose of what sounds good, then creativity flows when you don't block it. Creativity comes when there's freedom, when you don't overthink, when you don't self-doubt, when you don't procrastinate, when you don't criticize yourself, when you make decisions. And that's where the poorly comes in, is that if you make quick decisions and you just go off your feelings and you're in a safety or safe position to make choices or to create, you start to get creative. Energy comes from action. When people feel sluggish and they don't want to work out, usually they feel sluggish because they don't work out, right? It seems the exact opposite of what we're thinking. And for me, growth always has come from progress, not from perfection. Major changes usually happen over time. And it's only in hindsight that we look back and can see the change oftentimes. You can't see a tree grow. But if you plant a seed and you see the tree come up and you disappear and go away for 30 years and come back and you see that tree has grown and the power of it has ripped up maybe concrete around it, you see the great effects over time. It wasn't some quick, accelerated manipulation, right? It was a slow, gradual process that resulted in change. Growth comes from progress, not perfection. And the fun thing about creating is that when you really do it for the sake of it, even if it is poor at first, it's not great, it's not award-winning, momentum becomes more and more available. It generates a desire to keep going. It allows you to be focused on the present, the immediate, which takes away from overthinking, self-doubt, procrastination, self-criticism, indecision. So, anything worth doing is worth doing poorly. That if it really is worth doing, it's worth the time to do it and to learn how to do it and risk being a fool, risk being bad, risk learning. Last example that I can think of off the top of my head is language learning. Everybody babbles. Every baby babbles. Every person babbles. You sound like an idiot. That's the biggest thing that keeps people from learning a language, is that they're afraid to look stupid. But if learning a language is important, and to a lot of people it is, you have to be a fool. You have to start out at the very bottom like everybody else. I find this very, very encouraging. What do you think about that? What do you think about the saying, anything worth doing is worth doing poorly? I'd be interested in hearing about your comments or what you think about this in the comments below. If this was helpful, thought-invoking, please pass it on. Please subscribe. I'd appreciate it very much. And yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below. Always, thank you for watching. It means a lot to me. And we'll see you again next time.